All right, everyone, let's get started. Thank you all for coming out on this rainy, muggy July day. I really appreciate that so much. We have a full hour and some may be planned for you. Couple of announcements I want to start with. So I'm Susan Blackburn. I'm one of the master gardeners here at Roane County Extension Office. I work with a great group of people here that has been going strong for 20 plus years. Is that right? Sound right? Sure. 2006. Okay. One of the things I wanted to make sure that you all knew, and I did not get into the locked office to get our award, but this is an award winning lunch and learn. Yeah. So Roane County was given an award for outreach with workshops and education classes. So our lunch and learns, which have been working for many years, some of the founders in the Master Gardener organization started this a long time ago. And so here we are trying to reach out to the community to help educate. So we do have an award-winning lunch and learn. So that's exciting. Next month, just let me plug next month's Lunch and Learn as well, is one that's called Spills, Frills, and Thrills. And so come learn how to make those beautiful arrangements that have all the bright colors and the tall things and the things flowing over. And we'll teach you how to select your plants and what you can do when the seasons change and things like that. So come out and join us next Lunch and Learn, which is August the 8th, second Saturday of the month. I also wanted to announce that we are the proud owners of a Monarch butterfly way station in Roane County Park, just down the road, probably less than a mile. And the name of the way station is called Flutter Hollow. So that's why the sign with the Flutter Hollow bites, that actually means something. So we will be working to get some materials out there to help educate and things like that. So look for that. And Miss Ann wanted to talk about Garden of the Month.
Yes, Ann Gilmer, and I also am a master gardener here in Roane County. But how cute, it's so small. It's for what? Oh, it's for the recording. Okay, it's not to make me louder. Okay, because it was not making me louder. But anyway, August the 25th, we're inviting everybody who would like to join us. We're going to go to the new Pope's greenhouse, which is the old Meadowview. I still call it Meadowview. And she has been kind enough to offer to teach us about fall perennials. And she's also going to include some fall annuals so we can have, color in the fall as well as, of course, in the summer, and the perennials will carry over. So it's at 10 o'clock on August the 25th, and we hope you'll join us. And hopefully afterwards, we'll all go out to Aubrey's and have a great lunch.
Sounds great. That sounds great. Thanks, Ann. All right, so let's not take any more of Phil's time. This
fine.
is Phil Har. He is with the Eastern Region Nursery Specialist for Tennessee State University. He works in the Eastern Region UT Extension office in downtown West Boulevard, Knoxville, down toward the mall there. He has a bachelor's in environmental science and agriculture at the University of Georgia, and then went back to the University of Georgia for a master's in entomology. So this is the subject matter expert in what we're going to talk about today. His background in row crop entomology, and now he works with ornamental producers in both field and greenhouse production. He's also a beekeeper and removal specialist of honeybees. So let's welcome Phil, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, with that, I'll just start. 2 days ago, I did a massive 40-year-old hive honeybee removal, and I got stung about 20 times through the suit. So do I look like I got stung 20 times? I feel pretty good. Thank you, guys. All right, so today's topic we're going to talk about is not just beneficials, but we're going to try to promote beneficials while also managing pests. And we're going to go over some ways that we can do that. But first, I'm going to introduce you to the main beneficial parties that we are going to be talking about. So it's the 3 Ps, which is predators, parasitoids, and pollinators. So Predators are going to be the ones that are actively feeding on the body of their prey. Parasitoids are more acting like a parasite, where they are inhabiting and they are acting more as a host on the prey. Whereas pollinators are going to feed on nectar and floral resources. They're not going to be actively feeding on anything but helping us pollinate our crops. So with pollinators, I'm going to start, and I know we dive a lot into honeybees, and we put a lot on honeybees, but did you know, fun fact, they're not native at all. They're actually from Europe. It's the European honeybee, Apis mellifera. They came over probably a couple hundred years ago. We're 250 years old now here in the U.S., but they've been here just slightly less than that. So the Europeans brought them here. We kind of have coddled them because we need them for our food supply. Reason being is, they're more densely packed and able to be manipulated and moved in their boxes, to pollinate certain crops such as blueberries, avocados, some of the tropical fruits and subtropical fruits out in California, some of your nut crops, a lot of your cruciferous crops as well, such as nectarines, peaches, plums, things that need obligate pollination. So honeybees have a big piece of our food pyramid, but there are a lot of different pollinators that are bee species here. We have over 4,000 different species of bees here that are native, and they specialize more in some of your florals that are smaller, more adapted to this native climate and zone, and have been here for thousands of years, if not millions. And so they have adapted to that, been able to specialize in pollinating that, whereas the honeybees, not so much. They are more diversified in what we have grown in Europe, brought over here with us, and that is our food. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I am a beekeeper myself. I love the honeybees, but without all that emphasis on them, there are a lot of different pollinators out there that are very important as well. Also, a lot of wasp and flies as well are pollinators. I'm not going to dive too much into those because that's more of a small piece of the grand scheme of pollinators. Mostly, it's your bee species. And so I want to encourage you guys to utilize pollinator safety, at the beginning here. And we're going to talk about some ways that we can utilize pollinator safety in our garden, in our landscape, to try and promote these guys. Here's just a little graphical picture that's kind of to scale, I would say, within each group here. And these are different species of bees that we have native here. And then you have Apis mellifera, the honeybee in the middle there. So that's how big the honeybee is compared to some of these species. Your sweat bees, the ones that are really annoying here in the summer when you're, sweating and it's hot outside, and they land on you and they sting you because, you're rubbing on them or whatever. And you think, man, they're mean. Why do they sting you? They're actually just trying to get your salts. So all they need salts just like we do. That's their electrolytes. And so they're getting your sweat and your salts. And sometimes you rub on them or your clothes get on them, and then they'll sting you consequently. So they're not trying to come sting you. They actually just want the salts. But yeah, there's a lot of different sweat bees. There's some that are slightly larger, but they're all unique in their way of pollinating in their certain flowers. And oh, by the way, guys, don't let me just keep talking. I can go all day. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it. Don't wait till the end because there's going to be quite a bit of information. So feel free. Yeah.
Question, talking about the stinging. Which of the ones are the ones that is it only the honeybee that when it stings you, it loses its
No,
stinger?
most of the bees in particular, they do lose their stinger. Now, if you get into your wasp and yellow jackets, then they're able to sting multiple times. They don't have a barb stinger. The barb stinger is the reason that they lose it. And when they lose it, it pulls out all their organs with it. And that's what kills them. Yeah. So
a sweat bee dies of stings.
Yeah, usually they just committed suicide. So
One of those bees, I can't read the words as far back.
Sure.
A bee called a cow killer bee.
Oh no. The cow killer, you're thinking of the velvet ant. So that's what they call the velvet ant. That's actually a solitary wasp species. It's not a bee at all. but you're close. I mean, it's in the Hymenoptera, the order of insects that are the stinging insects. That, yeah. So, but they're much larger. They're probably 2 to 3 times the size of the honeybee. Bright orange. That's the female. She does not have any wings. The male has wings. The female stinger is longer than her abdomen. She can actually articulate it and sting you in multiple directions. So, yeah, I wouldn't advise messing with them. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Pretty much, I would say over most of North America. You know, you're going to see most of these species blending. Here in the East, I would see all along the East Coast, you're going to see these. So not totally like regional to just like East Tennessee. You know, you're going to see it across Tennessee all the way up until you get into the really, really cold areas. Probably going to cut off in the Dakotas, you know, in the Midwest where it gets really, really cold and they get that permafrost. You know, some of these are not able to overwinter, but they might enter and then leave, you know, for the pollinating season.
So I don't see
Yeah.
any bumblebee or carpenter bee or anything like that, but they're pollinators, right?
They are, and I don't have them in there in that particular graphic, but yeah, so they're going to be larger than the honeybee in this whole graphic, but yes, they are pollinators. I would say that carpenter bees are a little worse than any of the other groups as far as pollination goes. Reason being is they rob plants. Robbing mean they actually go behind where the floral resources are, chew a hole in the plant, suck out the nectar, don't go inside the floral parts to get the pollen. Yeah, so they.
The fact that I have a carpenter bee trap, I shouldn't feel too bad.
No. We have plenty of really great pollinators that will take the void of them. So yeah, and of course they're structurally compromising. So yeah, for that, yes.
Do they do that action primarily, or just sometimes they do that and other times pollinate?
Sometimes they pollinate depending on how big the flower is. You know, if they're able to land on it and go inside, you know, without a lot of work, they will do that, but they get lazy. And if resources get scarce, say for instance, only honeysuckles are in the native area where they're at and there's not a lot blooming, they can't get in a honeysuckle. It's really tiny. Even honeybees can't. So what they'll do is they'll go behind where the nectar is and they'll actually chew all along it, and they'll use their tongue to get in there and lick up all the nectar, you know, and leave the pollen inside. So yeah, they don't pollinate at all in that case. I've seen a lot of honeysuckles. If you go to some of them during dearth right now, when it's really dry and hot, you can look at the honeysuckles, pull them off, and if you see a slit cut in it, that means that there are probably carpenter bees somewhere, and they just cut it with their mandibles. Because they have really, really developed mandibles, more so than any of the others. They make holes in wood, that's right. That's what they're designed for. So they're able to rob quite a few different plant species. It's okay to kill them. That's what I'm saying. I'm giving you the pass on that. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Okay, so I am going to move on into, you know, some basics on parasitic wasps. So these are your parasitoids. This is a really big group. Again, it's not just wasp. So there are a lot of flies out there and some other insects as well that are parasitoids. However, I'd say one of your most megadiverse, greatest groups is going to be your parasitic wasp. There's actually quite a few. I have a vial of some today that are not too small like some of the ones I'll show you, but you can pass these around. I'll start with you here. And so those are parasitic wasps, and they come in different shapes, different sizes, some different colors, many different families of parasitic wasps. But they all specialize in a certain group of insects that they like to parasitize. So this one in particular, when I was doing my grad studies, I worked on aphid, sugarcane aphid, and grain sorghum. And when I was doing my sampling, I looked at a lot of the microbia that were on the leaves when I was doing my sampling to see what was eating the aphid population. And I would see these wasps on there, not particularly the adult. This is a very rare event to catch the adult like that, stinging the aphid. But what it's doing is it's ovipositing its egg, usually 1 to 2 eggs per aphid. So it's very specialized. It's singular usually, and they're roughly the size of an aphid. They're very small. Yeah. Oh, sorry. The mummies is what it will look like and turn into later on. So it'll start to become more hardened off and sclerotized, look more like a basketball and globular in shape, miscolored. But you could see those sessile on the leaves, on the stems, of infested plants in the garden. And if you see that, it's probably got a parasitoid living inside of it, developing. Those aphids are no longer feeding. They're not doing anything. They will give rise to more adults to continue the life cycle. And so, yeah, very interesting life cycle. Sometimes they specialize in certain worm species, such as cutworms, cabbage maggots, and other foliage damaging pests. So it's not just aphids, but some of them specialize in others as well. This is a really good biocontrol agent. I like to encourage them. The wasp itself is actually a pollinator as well. So that's a very small pollinator. And the adults do not have mouth parts that feed on any insects or flesh. They feed on nectar and pollen. So they will. Well, we're going to talk about some of those ways later, but we're just going to open it up right now and let you guys think about that as being a pollinator and a beneficial in the garden as far as a parasitoid as well. There's another good picture of the oviposition. So the female actually stuns the aphid and oviposits the egg. Fun fact, a stinger is actually an ovipositor. So that's where the eggs, it's developed into a way for Hymenoptera to lay eggs. So honeybees, the queen does have an ovipositor that was developed from a stinger. She does have a stinger as well. So here's what it would look like when they actually hatch. So you'll cut like a little C-shaped trap door, pop it open, and the wasp will come out, emerge, and then start the life cycle over again after mating. Usually within the same little area, general area that they hatch. They don't go too far from where the food is. So if there's a lot of yes.
Now, would those type of wasps also sting humans?
They could, but you probably wouldn't even feel it. They're so small. I can't really think of what I would equate the stinger length to even be, but I don't think it would actually even penetrate the skin to inject any sort of venom or anything that you would feel. I've never been stung by one that I know of. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to understand, if you see something like that on your plant,
Mm-hmm.
how can you tell if it's just an aphid or you're going to kill a beneficial bug?
Yeah, so these mummies is what they're called, are very globular-like, and you could see the aphids in this one, but let me back it up here. They don't look as much like their normal self. So here's the aphid here, if you were going to look at like a green aphid species, and then the mummy of that same species is going to look like that. So they're globular, they look more basketball shaped, miscolored, more tan to light pale, and they're not moving anymore. They're not actively feeding, so you'll be able to tell, what's a mummy and what's not, what's parasitized and what's not.
Still treat your plant for the
Yes. There's several things you could do to help promote these. I'm going to talk about some of those later. In general, some of the things that I'm talking about, things that are a little less toxic that work with these guys, because they're in there naturally. That's why we call them natural enemies. They're there. You don't have to go buy them and let them go. They occur naturally. You'll see them. Pretty hard to see. You might have to have a hand lens if you want to really tell them apart sometimes if you're not trained. Without my glasses, I can't see any of your faces. So, I'm pretty much blind, but I can see it with my glasses on. Yeah, so there's the female emerging right there. So more parasitic wasps. I know you guys have probably seen these, the hornworm parasitized. This is one of my favorites. So they attack different stages of life sometimes. So some of the parasitoids will attack the egg, some will attack the larvae, some will attack the nymphs if it's an incomplete metamorphosis pest. Some will attack later stage larvae. So this one, I don't like that it attacks after the worm has fed vigorously and pretty much destroyed the plant. But at the point that it is parasitized, and you see this in the garden, that worm is no longer feeding very much at all, if not any, after being parasitized. So when they are parasitized, they actually feed about 1/5 of what they normally would. So they've slowed down their metabolism. They start to be a little bit more lethargic, slow. They don't move as much as the larvae are developing inside to pupate. Once you see the white pupa, which are those little cocoons coming out, this is the end stage of development. This larva has stopped feeding completely. The parasitic wasps are getting ready to emerge. And so if you see this in the garden, you would leave it alone, is what I would say. Don't pick it off and burn it or throw it away or smash it, because that's the developmental life cycle of that particular species. And so this larva is pretty much dead at that point, and it will gradually give rise to some of these singular wasps that are going to emerge from each individual cocoon. Could be several dozen, depending on how large the larvae is. And then eventually it'll look like that. Once they've all emerged, the larvae will start to decay, turn black, and just hang there. So it's not causing you any damage at that point. I'll tell you, once you see a hornworm that is fifth or sixth instar, it's already done all its damage. And you can see the turds are almost the size of the fruit that you're yielding. So it's like, we're done now, at that point. So if you see this, just let it be and let it continue. Okay, so this is another really great one, the syrphid fly. I wanted to talk about this one because this is one that I saw in my particular crop, the sorghum and sugarcane aphid that I was studying. It feeds vigorously on aphids, and what they do, it's a maggot. It's not actually like a caterpillar or a larvae of a beetle. It has no legs, it has no eyes. It is a maggot, so it's more vermiform and in worm-like state. But it lives on the leaves and foliage and the stems in the upper canopy. It's not on the ground or on carrion or anything like you would think of normal fly larvae. But this one is unique, and what it does is it actually breaks the legs of the aphid, and it will actually pull the insides out and hollow it out as it's walking around. So maggots, when they feed, their mouth parts are not very fully developed. They don't actually have like chewing, biting mouth parts. They actually have hooks that are internal, and they come in and they pull. Usually it has to be liquidized food in order for them to feed on it. So that's how they have developed to feed on the aphid. They actually have to physically break it and then get inside that way.
What is inside the maggot?
Yeah, so you see some food. That's its digestive tract there, and it's been feeding. You can actually see it's got a piece of aphid there in its mouth. So yeah, they're not like your traditional really gooey, nasty white maggots that are really slim and I guess they have more of a smooth texture to them. This one's very rough, sclerotized, dry. They live in really unusual environment for being a fly larvae. You wouldn't even think of it as being as a beneficial. You would think, man, this is some kind of worm eating my plant. But it's not. And if you see this in there with a bunch of aphids, likely that's a syrphid fly larva. So I've seen several of these and I've watched them feed, and it's pretty brutal. But they do a really good job. So look out for that one. And then it doubles as a pollinator. So I've actually got a vial here, if I can figure out which one it is. Oh, it is this one. These are syrphid flies.
What's their life expectancy?
So, that depends. I would say as a larva, you're looking at several weeks. And then as an adult, probably less than that. They don't do much as an adult other than pollinate. They'll feed, mate, and then lay their eggs near the aphid colony or some sort of soft-bodied prey colony, and then the life cycle will start over again. So they don't live too long.
So if you don't really have any aphids on your plants, you probably won't see any.
Probably won't. If it's a clean plant, you're probably not going to see much. Yeah, so they like to lay their eggs near a good established colony of something, mealy bugs, aphids, whiteflies.
All the things we're trying to keep off our plants.
Absolutely. They are 100% beneficial. There's nothing bad about them at all. other than they kind of look ugly as a larvae, but that's about it. As an adult, you see it that yeah, they're pretty vicious towards the aphids, but that's my friend right there, you know. So, but the adult is actually called the news bee. It's not a bee, but it looks like one. You can see the stripes. That's what I'm passing around. Pretty small, but it'll just kind of just sit there and hover and give you the news. You know, that's why they call it the news bee. but yeah, it's a hoverfly and dual beneficial role. So pollinator and beneficial in the garden. Yes.
Are you saying nude or nude?
News.
News, like news.
Giving you the news.
NBC. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, news bee, that's what some folks call it. So, yeah. This is another one here, is a great pollinator, I guess you could say as well, but also a really voracious predator in the soil and ground level, the soldier beetle. So the larvae look kind of vermiform in the middle there, which is kind of like a worm or grub. They do have 3 pairs of legs, like most insects do in their later developmental stages, but as a larvae, you'll see that. And they feed pretty vigorously on a lot of your ground-dwelling pests, such as grubs, cutworms, snails, slugs, things like that. So they are beneficial in the garden in that aspect, but also double as a pollinator as well. So this one in particular, I'm sure you guys have seen this before. This is the goldenrod soldier beetle. So it particularly likes yellow floral parts, goldenrod in particular, because it kind of blends in there. Looks like it's infesting it, looks like it's feeding on it. It's not. They're actually feeding on pollen and nectar. So they're trying to pollinate, they're doing a little pollination for us. They're feeding, and then they're going to go and continue their life cycle after that, laying eggs, and then the ground-dwelling beetles are going to do a lot of that, pest manage it for you in the garden. So that's also a dual role pest management source for biological control.
Quick question. I feel like, because I used to let a lot of our milkweed grow at our old house,
Mm-hmm.
and they look very familiar in
Yeah.
terms of what was on our milkweed.
Okay.
But the milkweed was constantly getting infested with.
You might be seeing milkweed bug. There's
okay.
there's a pest that gets on milkweed too,
Okay.
and they're kind of that mosaic looking color where it's got.
The orangey and black.
This is
Yeah.
more of a yellow, I would say, than
Okay.
orange. The orange and black, that's the milkweed bug. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a pest.
Okay.
And I mean, milkweed is a weed. You know, it can
Right.
endure, but you know, it is not this.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is a particular species that likes goldenrod, but there's many different colors. You know, you come in different colors. They're all about the same shape, though. But if you see them in your floral parts, they're not feeding on the flowers. They're not a pest. They're just trying to get some nectar as adults, nectar and pollen. And then we're not going to leave the lady beetles out. I'm not going to pass around what a lady beetle looks like. I know you guys all know what that looks like. But we were just talking about earlier the Asian multicolored lady beetle and how it gets into people's houses, turns out to be kind of a stinky, nasty pest that gets up into the nooks and crannies and in the window sills and things like that. Those are not native. They came from Asia. We brought them here on purpose as a biocontrol agent. They're very vigorous feeders of all of the aphid pests, the mites, mealybugs, soft-bodied prey that any other native species feeds on. The reason it's invasive is because it outcompetes our native species. It displaces them. And then it becomes, you know, intrusive, coming into your homes, being a little bit more of a pest in that aspect than beneficial. But I assure you that they're doing quite a bit of biocontrol themselves as well.
Since they are competing and diminishing the native population, is it a good idea to maybe try and reduce them?
You can, but they're going to win. They're here to stay, I'm afraid, and they not really, you know, but I look at it as if you can tolerate their nasty smell and getting in the house, then they're doing a lot of good in the garden. They do. They bite. They're very, very voracious. They're much worse than the natives. but that makes them more competitive, you know, that aggressive behavior.
Is there not a concern that it will make the native extinct?
It could someday, but it hasn't yet. They've been here for decades. So we still have our 7-spotted lady beetles, our twice-stabbed lady beetles, a lot of our natives that are more specialized, they're still around. So could be in the future, you know, but for now we're seeing a mosaic of different species in the same pest. But I would say that you're going to see probably about 70 to 80% Asian multicolored. That's how robust they are. I think without them, you would see a significant increase in pests because they eat a lot of things.
Or you don't think the natives would then
Keep
start-
up?
keep up with the population?
No.
Start repopulating?
No, because we have so many non-native pests that are coming here. And so without that, the natives would not be able to keep up with what's
So is there
coming.
advice on how to keep them out of the house?
Can you beetle proof it? I don't know. I mean, you would have to like caulk every nook and cranny in your house. And I mean, it's virtually impossible and time consuming and very expensive and laborious, you know, to try to do such. You can't even bee proof your house from honeybees. That's why I'm a bee removal specialist, you know, and they're bigger than this.
The bees don't know.
They would if they were in your house. Trust me, they get nasty. But actually, I was going to show you guys. So I have what the lady beetle pupa and larvae look like. So I'm going to pass that around. These are actually Asian multicolored lady beetle life stages of the adult. And the Asian multicolor, the reason they call it Asian multicolor is because it comes in multi different colors, I mean, and shapes. It's not always, you know, 10 spots or whatever, you know, an orange. It could be like a whole bunch of spots. It could be almost black. It could be almost white. A lot of different colors. But the larvae and the pupa look almost the same. So that's how I'm able to identify that one. But this is what the larvae looks like. So I'm passing that around right now for size comparison to see what it actually looks like in the garden. I kind of think of it more as like an alligator, you know, like a little baby alligator with 6 legs. And it's very rough in appearance, you know. It doesn't. It's got all these like bumps and scales on it, and it just looks very unapproachable. They're very angry usually when they're disturbed, and they will bite you. And so try to stay clear of that if you don't want a nasty little painful bite, but they're not terrible. I mean, I've been bit by a lot worse. Pretty much everything you can think of, if you could imagine. But very voracious feeders of a lot of your soft-bodied prey, and so we try to keep them around. And no matter what your opinion is of the Asian multicolored, you know, I think of it as beneficial myself because I don't mind them in the house. Yeah, they are small. Yep, so this is another lady beetle species. That one actually feeds on only Cottony cushy scale, and so it's more of a specialized predator. But nonetheless, they come in different shapes and sizes and colors. There's a lot of native species as well. I could be here all day talking about just that, you know, so we'll move on to some of the other cool insects that we've got. So ground beetles, this one is a big one. So they pretty much, their whole life resides on the ground as an adult, as a larvae, as an egg, and they feed on such. So all of your soil-borne grubs, such as Japanese beetles, June beetles, some of your cutworms and things that live at the soil surface, you know, they're going to feed on that. Snails, slugs, and they have a pretty voracious appetite. So they come in many different shapes and species and forms, and I'm going to pass 2 vials around of different ground beetles. These are different species. One is the tiger beetle. It's really, really fast, and that's the one that's more metallic looking that I'm passing around, and it has spots. And then you have your other slower moving ones that are your traditional ground beetles. So they all feed pretty vigorously on all of these pests, and usually a larvae can consume up to 50 plus in its lifetime. So it spends quite a bit of time down there eating. And I'm going to pass the larvae around here.
How long do those live, usually?
So usually, life cycle of the larvae is probably going to be around a month, depending on species. And then when it's an adult, I would say you've got maybe another month, depending on if you squish it or not. But yeah, they can spend quite a bit of time on the ground, feeding on a lot of different pests. So it's good to keep them around if you see them. Again, not most beautiful sight to see, but yes, absolutely. They're doing a lot of work on the soil level and in the subsoil as well. It's debatable. Yeah, the caterpillars are well, some of them turn into moths, some of them turn into butterflies, so it depends. But
I've seen people say, "Oh, leave the hornworms alone."
whoa, I like my tomatoes. I like my tomatoes and peppers more.
Are you crazy?
Yeah, no,
Tell them to stay at this plant.
it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Yeah, I like my tomatoes and my peppers more than the hornworms. So, you know what? Yeah, if you like hornworms, you like cutworms, you like all these other pests, then go ahead and squish them. Whatever you got to do. But I'm just saying they do a lot of work in the garden. Green lacewing, this is another one. Very interesting life cycle. So this one doesn't have complete metamorphosis. It starts as an egg, then it has this little nymph stage, I guess you could say kind of like a larvae, and then it molts into an adult. And the larvae looks kind of like this worm-like maggot form, I guess, but the legs are really, really skinny and kind of hidden underneath it. But it does have 3 pairs of legs, like most insects do in their developmental stages. And then it has these hollow hypodermic needle-like mouth parts. And basically what it does, it specializes in soft-bodied prey, particularly aphids as pictured here, and it'll like grab them with these and suck out the aphid through these little hollow tubes as it's moving around. So it's able to evade predators and things like that.
Would that be like a mayfly or not?
This is not a mayfly. This is a completely different family of insects, and there are 2 main types that we have here. We've got the brown and the green lacewing, and I'm going to pass that one around here. The larger one is going to be the green, and the smaller one is the brown lacewing.
Yeah.
And so
the adult, it doesn't kill the aphids.
it doesn't do anything, actually. They have no mouth parts. They don't even feed. They literally are around for maybe a week or so, mate, and then lay eggs and die. And most of the life cycle is this larval / nymphal instar stage, and it just grows gradually as it feeds. Sometimes you may even see them on trees and other plants that have lichens and things that look like moss. This one will actually disguise itself in that aspect. It'll take the bodies of these dead aphids and pile it on its back.
Oh.
As they start drying out and sclerotizing, they look more like a lichen. And so if you see that lichen moving around, if you pull that off, it's totally, yeah, it is fascinating. It's detachable from the body, and you'll see that underneath it, just hiding there, in plain sight. So pretty unique adaptation to live on trees and things like that, especially like peach trees that get a lot of those lichens on them. You may see that from time to time, but very voracious feeder on particularly aphids, I would say. I don't see it feeding on much else most of the time, but very, very good for aphid. And the eggs, I don't have it pictured, and maybe that's something I should make a note of to put in here, but they actually lay their eggs on a stalk. So it's this little filament that comes suspended in the air, and that's so predators can't get to the egg. And if you ever see those on the undersides of a leaf, and it's very small, that is a lacewing egg, and each individual egg is going to give rise to one of the larvae. So, yeah, that's something I should probably add to this, because it's very hard to describe, I guess. Damsel bug. So this is in the assassin bug family. It's a very small version of the assassin bug, usually about a 1/2 inch, maybe even less than that. But it feeds on a lot of your small-bodied insects, such as aphids and caterpillars, leafhoppers, thrips, some of your greenhouse pests, whiteflies, mites, things like that. But it has a profound beak. So this is the difference between your pest and your predator. in the stink bug family. In the stink bug family, you have like this hollow tube that's more like a straw. With the predators, it's more like a beak, and it hollows into a point, and they use it to penetrate and inject enzymes to digest their food and pull it out. So that's the main difference. And usually the front legs in most of these predatorial stink bugs are more, I guess, adapted for grabbing, and they're a little bit more defined in the front. Whereas in most of your plant bugs that are feeding on plants, they're more defined in the rear for getting away. So that's main adaptations between the two that you would see out in the field.
When you talk about stink bugs, are they good or bad?
They're bad. Oh yeah. So most of your stink bugs are going to be plant feeders, and if they have the straw-like mouth parts, like I mentioned, which is basically just like a perfect, symmetrical straw all the way down, it's feeding on plants. If it has this hooked beak that kind of narrows to a point, it's most likely a predator. And I don't know if you feel comfortable getting that close or could even see it. Without my glasses on, I can't see that. But, I kind of look at the shape and I look at the front legs and things like that, how it's developed. Where's it at? Is there a big cluster of them? If there's a big cluster of them, likely a pest. If you see a singular one, likely a predator, because they're very territorial. So that's another thing. If they're more aggregated, then you're probably going to have pests. You can collect these actually out in the field. I've done it with sweep netting before. Hay fields or any kind of overgrowth. You can collect a lot of these and then you just release them in the garden. And typically they'll stay. They're not very good flyers. And if there's an active population to feed on, they typically won't move. So they'll stay there and eat. Assassin bugs. This is probably one of my favorite of the insects, and I just think it looks cool. It looks like it's got a saw blade coming out of its back. It's really armored. It looks like something from Mad Max. It's just amazing. But again, you've got this hooked beak, and you can see that is much more profound in this one. This is a much larger insect, up to 1.5 inches to 2 inches. I've even found them. So they get very, very big. This is also one of the most painful bites I've ever had. Not sting, but bite I've ever had. And again, they ingest these digestive enzymes, and they start to break down, and basically it causes necrosis in us, whereas it would just like digest the innards of most of its insect prey. So works really well in the garden, and pretty much a generalist feeder for the most part. And I was going to pass this one around too. This is a kissing bug. Not the one that transmits Chagas, this is not the same one, but this is one that we have that's in the assassin bug family. This is not the wheel bug, it's smaller, but it feeds on a lot of different insects. So if you see that one, it's also a beneficial. Anytime they have a hooked beak like that in North America, pretty much going to be a beneficial. Now they can bite you and it hurts, but they're going to help in the garden too. Praying mantids. So this is my favorite insect of all, I would say. This is probably the apex predator of all of the insect world. And we have 3 different species here, the Carolina, European, and Chinese mantid. The Chinese mantid is the largest, and that one gets up to 6 or 7 inches, depending on how well it's fed. But they not typically are the best in the garden, depending on how big they are. So the bigger they get, the bigger the prey has to be. So they start eating frogs, lizards, I've seen them eat hummingbirds. They wait at the bottom of the hummingbird feeder. Yeah, they could eat a lot of things. But your Carolina and European mantids that don't get very large, they typically feed on grasshoppers. So they're a little bit more beneficial. Those are our natives. The Chinese mantid, in its early instar form, when it's younger in the nymphal forms, it will actually feed on a lot of your pests. Once it becomes a large adult, that female will devour anything, and she'll just tear up. She's like a T-Rex of that world. So yeah, everything is food at that point. So maybe good, maybe bad. But they're ambush predators. They like to sit there and wait for their food, and they'll sit there all day until something lands. Usually one generation per year, and they overwinter in these oothekas, which are these foam-like pods. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them before. I should have brought that with me too, and I forgot. But yeah, very interesting life cycle. Egg, smaller version of itself, bigger self. So incomplete metamorphosis. And you'll see a lot of these little ones hatching usually in the late spring, early summer. I saw some the other day that were already about an inch or so. So that means they've been out for some time, maybe a month or so, in various generations. I was going to pass this one around. Not a praying mantis. This is a mantid fly. So this is a fully grown adult. It looks like a praying mantis, but with wings, and it looks kind of like a hybrid between a wasp and a mantis. But it can't sting or anything, and it eats a lot of your smaller gnats, flies, things like that that aren't that large. So another interesting one. So now we just went through a lot of the insect beneficials. So now I want to show you guys how we kind of integrate pest management system into your garden and your landscape with encouraging them to be there. So the main thing is integrated pest management. What is that? IPM. So basically, a lot of people think of it as limiting the usage of pesticides. That's not entirely true. It's a lot of things. So there's a lot of ways to utilize integrated pest management in your system. For more benefit, maybe you want to go more organic. This is a way to do it. So it's not necessarily to limit pesticides or eliminate pesticides, but use multiple things in concert to try and control a pest. So the first thing is, and I'm just going through the scientific method. I know this could be a little boring, but scout for pests and injuries, identify your pests. So you need somebody or yourself or Google now. AI is becoming very integrated. You're able to use Google Lens now. I can use it for anything just to tell me the value of something that I have nothing to know about. But they're moving over to the bug world now, where you can actually pull up an actual image online and match it up to try and ID what it is. So that's a good identification tool. Of course, your extension office here. I'm a resource too. If it's a bug, I can help. You want to make sure you're getting the right strategy down. So you want to make sure identification is key. And then decide the most effective management strategy. Implement it, record, and observe the results, as the scientific method would say. I put this together here. So this is actually integrated pest management tactics in like a food pyramid form. So you have your junk food at the top, right, that you're not supposed to eat a lot of. Likewise with chemicals, we don't want to use too many of those or rely too heavily on those. So that's at the top. At the bottom, you've got your cultural tactics. This is where you start, from the very beginning before you even plant. This is where you brainstorm and think about what you want to do. Where do you want to put your plants, things like that. So that's where you would eat, most of your good foods. It's in the bigger portion down there. So that's where we start. So with cultural tactics, site selection, plant selection, crop rotation, disease-resistant varieties, this is a lot of things that you could do without a lot of effort. Choosing the right plant, choosing the right site. Is it full sun? Is it part sun? Is it flat? Is it, does it have a grade to it? Does it get good, soil perk? Is it compacted? Is it terrible soil? Things like that to give your plant a good start, so that it doesn't have so much pest pressure, because stressed plants always are going to have more pressure. Then you move into your physical, which is not the one that we want to think about first. You don't want to rely too much on that, because what is physical? It's a lot of work. So you don't want to be out there weeding all the time, using mulching, applying that, setting up traps and barriers, but it works, and it does work very well. A lot of organic agriculture relies heavily on this as a secondary method to cultural, because they can't use very many chemicals later stage. So it's more physical, that drives the cost up of the food. And then biological, of course, that is going to be what we talked about today, encouraging your natural enemies, maybe even integrating or purchasing some to release to kind of amplify the biological activity, or using biopesticides. There are several of those as well. But they're more natural based and they work really well on a lot of these pests. And then, of course, chemical, we're going to have that. And there are natural chemicals and there are synthetic, and some are more expensive, some are more toxic, broad spectrum, specific. We're going to go over some of those things right now. So we've got pesticides, contact versus systemic, specific versus broad spectrum, and natural versus synthetic. I'm just going to go over each of these individually. But these are the three main groupings that I like to go through on pesticides to try to segregate them and show you the differences. So contact versus systemic. Usually contact, as the name suggests, only works through direct contact. So that means that the insect has to either come into contact with it after it's been applied, or you have to spray it and apply it directly to the insect. It does not work in the plant. It doesn't have any translocative activity. It has no systemic activity. Oftentimes, if it rains, it will wash it off. You're not going to get any adequate control at all. So that's something to keep in mind if you're using a contact. An example of that would be pyrethroids. I know you guys have heard of some of these. Probably bifenthrin is probably one of the most widely used chemicals. That chemistry has been out for a while. Deltamethrin, permethrin. These are nuclear bombs, guys. They're not something that you just spray immediately. Let's not think about it. I've got it in the back. I don't want these pests anymore. Because what happens is you nuke everything. You're going to kill all the natural enemies, probably some of the pests, but what's better at coming back? The pest. Yeah, aphids and whiteflies and a lot of your greenhouse pests and some of the ones that are common in the garden, they have telescoping generations. They're able to generate their population much quicker. And so knocking them down, you might think that you're doing some good in the short term, but in the long term, you're doing a lot of harm by killing a lot of those natural enemies. So that would be like a last resort. Yeah.
They have to ingest this, correct?
Actually, contact. Yeah, they do not have to ingest it. No, this is so they are making contact with it either by touching it, or you have physically coated them with it. Those type of things. It's not.
The screen that walks in the street.
Correct. Yeah. So they're pretty toxic, so if there's enough titers on the surface, they're able to get adequate control, but after a big rain, the lesser and less you're going to have, you're going to get sublethal levels, things like Japanese beetles. They're very robust. You need
They used
more.
to give us something like this when we deployed.
Oh,
Put on our uniform.
yes. Exactly.
After 2 or 3 washes, you have to do it.
Sure. The ear tags they put on cattle, those are pyrethroids.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they slap them around like this, and it slings the pyrethroid on their back to kill flies.
I just thought it was their number.
Yeah, and it is that. It doubles as a number, and it's also, it's a. We used to put them in traps when we were catching stink bugs for the brown marmorated stink bug monitorization program we were doing in Georgia when they were first coming over from Asia, and that was our chemical to kill them. That was our kill trap. It was ear tag for cattle. Yeah, that's how I knew that. I was like, no way. Yeah, but yeah. Yeah, don't touch those with your bare hands. It's pure chemical. But yeah, that stuff it's pretty nasty chemistries. They're not something that you want to start with. Yeah. Sorry.
Where would diatomaceous earth fit into that?
Diatomaceous earth. In all of this, that would probably be under contact. It's a contact, but that's a natural. That's not something that's synthesized at all. That's more of a natural occurring chemical, and it's not a chemical really.
Oh, mechanical.
Yeah, mechanical, I guess, but yeah, sure.
It's for the good stuff too, right?
Yeah.
It does. It's not. It's broad spectrum. It's not specific. It'll whatever comes into contact with it or gets near it, is going to control it. So, I mean, some folks use it around beehives. at the bottom to get, get rid of ants and pests that are, yeah. So it's, yeah, it's one of those. But yeah, pyrethroids, probably more of a later resort, last ditch effort. Natural extracts, pyrethrum and neem oil. So fun fact here, pyrethrum is the natural extract and chemical derivative of what they created, your pyrethroids. Pyrethroids are from pyrethrum, but they were, manipulated in the lab and synthetically produced to make your pyrethroids. So that is the main difference between those. And then you have your insecticidal soaps. Of course, there's a lot of those out there. I put a couple examples, Garden Safe and Safer brand. Those pretty easy to buy pretty much anywhere, and now online shopping, you can have it almost next day delivery or same day delivery, especially with Amazon and what they've got going on now. So yeah, very, very easy to get a hold of some of this stuff. Organophosphates, again, that's going to be kind of like your pyrethroids, pretty expensive, very toxic chemicals, more of a last-ditch effort. Malathion and chlorpyrifos. I think malathion, EPA is putting some regulations on that at this point. It's got a lot of bad rap. And then you've got your Hort and dormant oils, which could be plant-based or petroleum-based. So some are natural, some are not natural. Petroleum, not natural. Plant-based, natural. Good or bad, yes.
Who was Spinosad? What does that fall in?
Spinosad, that is going to be your, I'm trying to think, that is a contact, I believe. Yeah, I think so. Actually, no, that's.
I think it stays on the leaves and they eat the leaves.
That's an ingest, yeah, they have to ingest that one. Yeah, that's.
But it degrades in about 3 days in sunlight, so it's considered organic.
Right, and I believe that's BT, is that BT? Is the basic? Right. Okay, so what is Spinosad's active ingredient? I don't know that's the trade name.
Yeah.
What's the active ingredient in that one? Do you know? Google. Google's got it. Google is your friend now. It is. Yeah, I think it's definitely, it's one of those natural ones though. I know that's used in organic agriculture. And then you have your systemics on the right. So different from contact, this one's translocated throughout the plant. So we use these a lot in trees, especially in the ornamental industry, because you can't get all the way to the top.
It says it's a fermentation of a soil bacteria. I can't.
Okay, so it's not BT. It's not Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a different bacteria. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Spinosin A and Spinosin D.
But it's a soil dwelling bacterium probably that they've got a derivative of.
Which is why it's considered more organic.
Exactly. BT is organic. It's the same concept, but it's
BT works with your hornworms.
Caterpillars. Yeah, caterpillars. Yeah, exactly. Yep. But yeah, so systemics, they work for bigger trees, shrubs, some of your larger plants. If you've got a lot of plants that have aphid issues, sometimes folks use it. It's very expensive. These systemics, neonicotinoids, I know that one you guys have probably heard of, killing the bees and everything. I think the bees are more having issues with more biological problems than pesticides, but this one is a bad one for a lot of reasons. It gets into the floral parts, and people are misusing it, spraying it on blooms and things like that, and so it becomes a very big issue. Imidacloprid and dinotefteron are two good examples of your systemics that we use in ornamentals particularly, so crepe myrtles, red buds, dogwoods, viburnum, some of those. And then I know you guys have heard of the hemlock woolly adelgid aphid. Yes, that one's big, and it was killing a lot of the hemlocks for a while. So they had to get this annual and biannual treatment with neonicotinoids, and they particularly used imidacloprid overall with a soil drench. It was taken up systemically through the roots, and it translocates it throughout the tissues of the entire tree. So it goes all the way to the stems and leaves, all the way to the canopy. So you get full coverage.
So is it slow include some of that hemlock?
Yeah, the ones that are treated have no issue. Yeah, but I still see the adelgid on untreated hemlock, even up in Knoxville. I've seen it. So it's around, and it's a gradual decline. Doesn't kill it, in 1 year, but several years of pressure, and it will kill the tree. So yeah, but that's one of the things.
Same thing as like the pine beetle.
No, no. This one is more of a sapsucker, kind of like aphids, and the adelgid kind of resembles an aphid, I would say, in its life cycle. But no, doesn't bore into the tissue or anything like that. And then you have your specific versus broad spectrum. And as you can imagine, your specific is going to be just a particular species or type. So we were just talking about BT, and then spinosad, which we learned, is a different bacterium, but it's kind of similar to BT, but targeting towards caterpillars, BT is. And so that is a natural targeting insecticide that is relatively cheap and easy to apply. And I would say this is where you're trying to head towards this direction if you're going to use chemicals. Try to be more specific, less broad spectrum, a little more natural, and that way you can work with your natural enemies. Broad spectrum is going to be, your pyrethroid is going to control everything. Again, it's like a nuclear bomb. It'll kill anything it comes into contact with, sometimes small invertebrates and other vertebrates as well. Lizards and frogs, they have a lot of sensitivity to these too. Natural versus synthetic. So again, derived from natural sources is going to be your natural, as you could imagine. The big thing here that is different is they're a lot cheaper usually than your synthetic compounds. They haven't created them in a lab or had to synthesize them. They're just simply, extracted, and then maybe they're concentrated a little bit more, and then they bottle it and send it off. So it's pretty relatively inexpensive. Some examples are pyrethrum, as I mentioned. That is the derivative of pyrethroids. Exactly, chrysanthemum plant, exactly. Crushed flowers usually is where they get a lot of that from. And neem oil, of course, you guys have heard of that, I'm sure, as well. It does. It works very well, though, and works pretty good on a lot of your greenhouse pests. And then BT, we just talked about. That one is going to be for caterpillars. And then insecticidal soaps. Those work pretty well as well. And your hort oils, I like these a lot because they're more of a suffocating insecticide, not something that needs to be ingested, not something that needs to be pulled into the body cavity, but rather it's just like a smothering agent. And so you're covering the eggs, the larvae, sometimes the adults, depending on what species you're trying to control. And it works really well on a lot of your soft-bodied insects. So hort oils, usually use those in the summertime. They're a little bit less viscous, and you don't want to apply them when it's 85 plus degrees. So we're pretty hot right now because it'll cause some phytotoxicity. And you don't want to apply your dormant oils, which is a little bit thicker, when it's really, really cold outside. Usually freezing is the cutoff. So you want to be somewhere between above freezing and below 85 degrees, and you can apply these pretty well, get good coverage, and it would be something that you could apply without having to get into the really hard chemistries. Synthetic, we have the man-made stuff, definitely going to be more expensive. Usually all of these are pretty expensive. I would say the neonics are some of the most expensive ones. So that was the imidacloprid I talked about that was a systemic. We use them in the ornamental industry. Nobody ever wants to hear that they have to treat with that because they're considering cutting the tree down and starting over at that point because they're that expensive. Pyrethroids, usually not as expensive, but more than some of these other natural derivatives. But again, pyrethroids are not very specific, and they're broad spectrum contacts. So you're just spraying it all over the place and killing a lot of different things. And organophosphates are kind of the same category as pyrethroids. So one thing I wanted to say with the application of these pesticides after you've picked it, so you want to try to use the less toxic first, right? So we try to get the smothering agents, your Hort oils, soaps, BT, anything natural, more targeting, and a little less harsh chemistry. Then you want to think about when you're going to apply it. So in the middle of the day when it's windy and it's hot and it's sunny, probably not the best time. You know, everything's flying around. There's pollinators. There's a lot of natural enemies. It's windy. It'll probably blow right back in your face. So try to do it in the early morning and the late evening. I always lean towards the late evening because it has a longer time to sit before the next day and everything gets up and starts flying around. You know, the bees are up early in the morning now. Usually before the sun gets up around 6:30 now, I've seen activity from my hives. So it's hard to beat the bees, you know, in the morning. So I try to, if I was going to apply something, do it at night. You know, that way they're all there, they're not moving, and you get more activity on your plants where it needs to be. Avoiding bloom is another thing. So right now we're kind of in that dearth period, dry earth, where not a lot is blooming, and we're in the middle of, you know, that transitionary period where we move from rain to drought, even though it doesn't seem like it because it's raining all the time right now and it's unusual, but I know we're headed for it and we'll just be really hot and dry, not a lot of blooming. Not really something you need to worry about this time of year, but in the spring when everything is blooming, try to avoid those flowers, those floral parts, or try to spray things in areas where it's not in the direct contact with the flower, if you can. And avoid the windy days. I always say that too. So yeah, this is just something that you need to think about with your application process, and it's very simple to do. You just have to time it correctly, you know, and think about it a little bit. So I have this one last thing, and it's a little scenario I set up. So this is something that really happened. These are real pictures. Crepe myrtle bark scale. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before or heard of it. It's a new and upcoming pest. I guess it's been in Tennessee for a couple years now, but it's spreading to every county. We have it pretty heavy in Knoxville. This is an infestation I saw in Knoxville a few years ago. So they're basically soft scales that feed on ornamental crepe myrtles primarily. They can get into some hollies as well. And they have piercing, sucking mouth parts that feed on the phloem, so they're similar to aphids in that aspect. Found on woody tissues and newer succulent growth. So you can see here, there's a lot of newer tissue growth coming from where a cut was made about chest high. And they're all over it. There's pretty much all that white stuff that you see, that's all the bark scale. That's not supposed to be there. That's not lichens or anything like that. They prefer the undersides of the branches away from the sun, and they prefer it to be a little bit more clustered where there's not good wind flow either, because they don't like to be dried out. They like to stay a little bit moist and away from the sun. They overwinter in ovisacs. They hatch. The first crawler emerges in April and May, and then they'll start again and do a second generation in the late summer. So with all this, and I'm telling you what she did, this lady had 30-year-old crepe myrtles, probably about 10 of them, and she just had them pruned for the first time and just hacked them off about chest high. Massive cuts. Huge, huge cuts. And so all this succulent new tissue growth came out within the last, I guess, that's probably about a year and a half old. And then they showed up. For the first time, she's never seen these ever in 30 years. So with all this knowledge of what this is, you know, think about what we could do better with this whole scenario and how could we control this pest, you know, knowing what it is. And I've got the whole thing. We're going to go through it step by step, but I just want to hear what you guys think would be the number one thing probably here to start with. Don't cut that like that. You know, if you're, don't crepe murder it. So you've heard that, right? This is crepe murder. Yeah, they have destroyed that tree. It will never look good again. It'll always be like this now. So the first thing is, if you are going to prune, don't make big cuts. Don't do these massive cuts like that. You have to make smaller cuts at a time. Scaffolding branches, crossing branches, dead material, you know, smaller cuts. Not this huge chainsaw cut. That's crazy. Exactly. And when you're pruning, that's what you target. That's exactly right.
They lay their eggs, go with the leaf blower.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
I've just planted some new grape.
Mhm.
They're about 3 years old. This is the third year.
Okay.
What can I do to kind of head this off?
Well,
Preventive kind of?
preventative, and we're talking about that right now. So what will you start with how you manicure it? Do you keep it, you cut it, make big cuts? Don't do the big cuts.
Well, they're just about that.
Right. They'll get big someday though, and you're going to look at them like, wow, you're getting out of control. You're going to want to prune it. Right. Yeah. This one, I mean, they were healthy, for 30 years, no issues. And then all of a sudden, this.
And so she just stressed the heck
What
out of
made
it.
her,
and-
what made her
Absolutely.
decide after 30 years to chop them off?
I didn't even ask her that. I was like, we don't even want to go into that, because she felt bad enough already. She knew something was wrong after that. She said, I did this and then this. She knew something bad happened. And yeah.
I mean, it seems like, but how would you get it to stay on? But it seems like something like diatomaceous earth, if they're a soft,
Mhm.
or even the oils.
Neem
to-
oil.
Oils. If you see an early infestation with yours, oils. Hort oils, neem oils, soaps, the things that we were talking about, some of those natural derivatives, they work really well on small populations.
In the beginning stages, will it look like little black spots?
Yes, you'll have little white blotches, in the succulent new growth tissue, not at the base, not at the stump, And things that you could do is prune it out. You can prune out those branches that are infested and burn them. Or you could, preventatively, even before you have an infestation, as you had said, open it up. Allow that sunlight and that airflow in there. They don't like that. Open up that canopy. Don't make massive cuts. Just kind of preventatively, keep it healthy. So these are all good. This is what I wanted to see, getting you guys thinking about what's going on here and what we can do.
So another thing too, I mean, those look pretty densely planted.
Yeah.
So if
They are.
instead of crepe murdering them,
Mm-hmm.
like selectively
Sure.
pull them out.
Maybe she should have took out a few of them, let them have their space. That probably would have been a better option, but they just came in and cut every single one of them down, all 10 of them, and it was amazing to see the damage. And so this pest doesn't just, look ugly now. It actually stops the blooms. So the crepe myrtles, you don't see that abundance in blooming. They look really ugly all around. It will. If you leave this unchecked, now crepe myrtles are pretty hardy. I mean, it's hard to kill them. It's hard, yeah. But here's the thing: year after year of this being stressed with this pest on there is going to cause other things to come in, like ambrosia beetle, which is a boring beetle, and then you'll get secondary pest issues that come in and kill it. So that one, once it goes into the trunk, it kills trees. I've seen crepe myrtles die. I've seen them die, from this stuff, not trying to purposely kill them, so. That was a good, it's good timing.
So if it,
I was gonna ask, does this cause the black sticky stuff?
Yes. Yes, I didn't even mention that. So you get that sooty mold is what it's called. So all of these sap-sucking insects, such as this one and aphids, they produce honeydew, which is a sweet, sugary substance, and it drips and it falls below the canopy wherever they're feeding. And then what happens is a fungus comes and starts to feed on that. It turns it black. And that's what you see as black sooty mold. So yeah, I've had that happen when I parked my car under a tulip poplar, and you get the aphid, tulip poplar aphid up there, and the way up in the canopy, and it's dripping all that honeydew down on your car, and then you got this black stuff all over your car, and it's like, I know what I did. Didn't even look up, and there's the tree. But same thing. This is just a different pest, but it does the same thing with its feeding activity.
when it's bad enough like this, do you do the systemic?
Yes.
The root treatment?
That's where I was going to go next if nobody said it, because we were just going to go through all this stuff on the next slide. And yes, so this is so bad at this point, because of what has been done in the past and how they managed it, we now have to use a systemic. That's what I actually told her. I said, you're going to need imidacloprid if you want to keep these. And I told her, you know, I wrote it all up. I showed her how much to use, the dosage, how to apply it and everything. And she got good control. She's got them back now. But I said, don't do that again. They'll come right back. You know, that was bad. And that was expensive for her, but she didn't want to lose 30-year-old crepe myrtles. So I was like, you know, it's not going to be easy to control this.
There are still a lot of tree people out there that think that's the way you take care of crepe myrtles.
Oh, yeah.
So many people, they call a tree person, or the tree person comes out and does it, they think, well, they know.
Well, that's how they always did it. That's just how they think it looks good. It looks terrible. It's awful. You know, it's lazy to me. It's like, I could do that. You know, I'm not even a tree guy. You know, I just get my chainsaw out and just hack it. That's easy, you know.
I mean, that's a lot of the reason it happens a lot, because
Yeah.
homeowners don't know.
They
And
don't.
they call a person they think that knows, and that person, oh yeah, this is how you do it.
Right. That's how they always did it, you know, and just bad, really bad practice. And now this is an invasive pest. We didn't always have this pest. This one's new, but it really likes stressed out crepe myrtles. So it just happens that, you know, what they've been doing all these years, you know, with the murder, it attracts this particular invasive.
So it does get on other types of plants, not just crepe myrtles?
It does, but it's very unlikely. I've seen it on hollies, but they have to be super stressed out. Like a holly is even more robust than a crepe myrtle. But yeah, sometimes you want to kill them and you can't. Yeah, it's that way. But the reason it got the name is because it loves crepe myrtles, really loves them. So
I hate to interrupt this great discussion, but we're running long on
Oh,
time.
oh,
So I want to be
well, we're done here. That was
respectful of
it.
times. Okay,
that was
great.
it. Yeah. So you guys hit it all. You know, this is what we went through here: cultural, proper pruning, washing off or lightly scrubbing branches. I didn't mention that one, but that's more for smaller crepe myrtles. Obviously, not the big ones. You wouldn't be able to reach it. Encouraging your biologicals, you know, by targeting areas that are not blooming. On the crepe myrtle, targeting, you know, where the pest is on the branches. And then your utilizing your chemicals first, like hort oils, obviously your naturals first, soaps. And then systemic later on, like in this case, you would actually need that systemic imidacloprid and targeting the more susceptible life stages. So yeah, that's all I've got.
Awesome. That is awesome. I want to know what to do for squash bugs.
Oh, squash
Evil
bugs,
demons. Evil
vine
demons.
borers or bugs?
No, squash bugs.
Squash bugs. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these
They're evil demons.
chemicals will work. Some of those will. Spinosad might work.
Yeah.
Does it really?
I
Oh.
cut the leaf. If I see the little brown, every day I'm out looking under the leaves like this for the little brown eggs, and I take the
Crush
leaf
them?
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's a
can do
good
that,
idea. I
yeah.
didn't think about that. I always crushed it with my thumb, but
And you could use a
sure.
We did that all year last year.
or a
Oh.
roll
This year, I think it
brush.
was Spinosad.
Lily,
Okay.
Lily,
And Spinosad worked.
It does.
Lily.
It does squash bugs.
Lily, come
It
here.
does Colorado beetle. It does the flea beetles. They
Huh.
got potatoes.
Okay. Wow, I'll have to look into that. My mom's got squash and she's
Yeah.
got a big
I'm
problem.
fighting it every day. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. That was
absolutely.
a fascinating topic.
Perfect.
Yeah. We have a gift for
Oh.
you for coming and
Thank you.
talking. We have one of our master gardeners here in Rome County's brother is an
Okay.
artist, local artist.
Oh.
And so he provides us with
Oh,
some
wow.
beautiful artwork.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
that is a gift
Very
that
nice.
we give.
Very nice.
There's actually two. I'll let you pick which one.
Oh, okay.
Don't know if you're a waterfall guy or a flower guy.
Oh,
So
man.
I'll let you pick. But that's a gift for
That
you
waterfall
for
looks
coming
great.
out here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's Abrams Falls. It's in the Smokies.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you guys for
appreciate
having
that.
me.
And Miss Lily, my beautiful assistant, is going to help us with the door prizes. Yeah. So reach in there and pull one ticket. All right. The last three numbers on the ticket are 259. Woo! All right. You want to take that to that lady right there on the end. And we have one more. Men, if you get this, I'm sorry. I just saw it and thought it was cute. Thought I would bring it as a door prize. All right, pick one more ticket. And the number is 268. 268. All right. Hand that to that nice lady. All right, folks. We need your feedback. We want to bring topics that are relevant to you, that are helpful for you, but we don't know what you need to know if you don't tell us.
Yeah.
So take a minute, fill out your little evaluation form, and you can just drop it off the table. And we hope to see you next month. Thank you for coming. I'll get you one. Take snacks home.
Yeah.